Okay, so I'm welcoming you all again for the sake of the recording, and here's Rosemary just coming in and joining us, so that email worked. Hello, Rosemary. I'm just welcoming everyone, and although there's not so many on the Zoom this evening, people will be watching this on catch up when we put the recording on the website, and I've heard from people who have watched it afterwards. So it's not just for our own benefit, it's for those who will watch it later as well. What I thought we'd do this evening is that I would invite just a few people, but then anybody else as well, to talk about their own spiritual practice. In other words, how they themselves pray, or they may not think of it as prayer, but whatever they do to relate to God. So I've asked, I've asked Angela, who's going to go first, because she and Glyn have to leave us in 20 minutes to go to another meeting. So we're going to hear from Angela, then we're going to hear from Jen, then we're going to hear from Rosemary, then Cliff, and if we haven't run out of time, me. And if we've got time left at the end, then I'll open it for anybody to share anything they'd like to. So, Angela, you've unmuted, and oh, wait a minute, Heather and Doreen are just joining us. Let's get them in first. I thought they would be here, but we won't embarrass them by saying, hello, Heather and Doreen. We're just starting. And Angela Constantine is just going to share something of her own prayer life and spiritual practice, and then 4 other people are as well. So over to Angela.
Thank you. I always like to start the day with my quiet time. I always feel that it's a good place to start. So I take my cup of tea and Glyn's bowl of whatever he's having, granola, and he has that in bed, and I sit also in bed with my Bible and 3 daily readings, which I use regularly. They're such an encouragement to me. One of them particularly is one, I don't know if anybody else gets it, the word for today. Anybody heard? Just nod if you've heard of it. Yeah. It's a lovely one. It comes out once a quarter, and I find that's a little snippet of encouragement that spurs me on for the day. The other 2 are more sort of Bible study passages, so I can read into the passage and then do some praying and meditating about those passages that I'm reading. So that's sort of at the beginning of the day. Now, regarding prayer, I have a lot of people that are on a prayer list that I pray for regularly, and but sometimes, because the list is quite long, I sometimes forget. But it's amazing how in the day somebody will pop into my mind, and I use that arrow prayer, if you like, to pray for that person. Invariably, I find that those people that have come to mind were in need at that particular moment. So that's a sense of the Spirit prompting, which is a great encouragement to me. The other thing that happens through prayer is often I get woken in the night. I don't know if anybody else gets that, but and I'm thinking, well, why am I awake? Well, okay, Lord, there must be somebody I need to pray for. So I just pray, Lord, show me, and again, somebody's name might pop into my head, and I'll just bring that person to the Lord. And in fact, in the middle of the night, it's probably the most closest I feel to God. because he's basically woken me up to pray. But there is that sense of awareness of God's Spirit moving. And again, I've contacted a person that I've heard, prayed for in the middle of the night, and they've said at that point, I just needed that prayer. I was awake and I didn't know what to do. And that's happened on more than one occasion. So I feel like prayer is a continual journey, not just at the beginning of the day. And Glyn and I always pray before we go to bed at night. But it's that sort of awareness of God's Spirit prompting you to pray, even when you might be doing something completely different to, you're thinking about prayer particularly. And something just is a little prompt that just comes to me. So, starting the day with God is a good thing. I always used to say it's probably better not to put your armor on and get into bed, because that's sometimes what's happened if you read the Bible. You might want to read the Bible in the evening, but it feels like in the morning you're actually putting on the armor of God and getting ready for that day with Him and being aware of the Spirit of God speaking to you to pray specifically for somebody or a need that comes to mind. So that's just a little bit of my journey.
Angela, thank you. May I ask why you have 3 sets of Bible reading notes?
Well, it started with one, and then somebody bought me another, and that other one is Jesus Calling, and it's written by a lady called Sarah, and I've forgotten her surname, but she was she actually had an encounter with God, and she spent a lot of time alone with God and wrote down what she heard God say directly to her. And then wrote, in fact, she's written other books as well, which are also daily readings. And that's just it's almost like God speaking directly to you through those words each day. And invariably, those readings fit, even though they're different, they actually fit together in a theme. So I just feel like that is something else. And then there's another one that's a specific pursuit of His presence, it's called. It's a specific Bible following of a Bible passage that is, relevant, and then a bit of a write-up to it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So are you going to stay until you have to go to your other meeting?
Yes. I'm sorry, we have a local preachers meeting for the Sutton Park circuit, and we're both mentors, and we've got to report tonight. So
that must get confusing for you, because you're actually in Norfolk rather than in Sutton Coldfield, but you have to go to a Sutton Coldfield meeting on Zoom, like
yes.
You're normally on Zoom here when you're there.
So that's right.
Yes.
It's a bit of a schizophrenic thing, but it kind of works.
Okay, great. Right. Are you going to mute yourselves? And Jen, you're going to be next, so I'll move out of the way a bit. Jackie asked me, first of all, she said, can you talk about your spirituality? And then said, can you talk about the rule of life? So I'm going to try and combine the two. First of all, though, I want to show you this cross. If I hold it very near, no, that doesn't work. Never mind. And that's what it says. It says the Methodist diaconal order. So this cross we receive when we're ordained. After the laying on of hands, they present you with the cross, which means deacons become part of a religious order. There's, if you like, 2 aspects to being a deacon. One is an order of ministry, like presbyters is an order of ministry. But with deacons, it's also being part of a religious order. And that's really a key to, it's a key to who I am, but also a key to my spirituality. So much so that, like, tonight, as Jackie has got
what I call mufti on. So she's not in her clerical gear, but I considered not doing that today. But actually, a very part of spirituality within the order is being part of it, of which wearing navy and white is an important, it's an important commitment of us being together. And the rule of life, I'm just going to read the very first sentence. We follow this rule of life to deepen our fellowship and bind us together as a dispersed community, that we may continue to become the people God wants us to be, both individually and as an order. There's only about 220, I think now, what they call active deacons, in other words, working ones, not retired, in the whole country. So in many places, there are not many at all. There's only 4 or 5 in Norfolk, the whole spread of Norfolk. So we're very much a dispersed community. So, but there's some things that hold us together. And this prayer book it has every deacon in the country, including the retired deacons, and every day deacons pray for. It goes in a rota of, so every day deacons are being prayed for, and deacons are praying for those people. So that's an important. Just it has a real sense of being upheld every day in and day. I just want to go back to the cross though. For me, that symbol, which of course is very much like a Celtic cross, traditionally people say that shows that Jesus is in the world, but for my spirituality, I would say it the other way around as well, is the world is in Jesus. So in order to connect with Jesus in a way, it's being in the world. So for me, prayer is often being with people, connecting with people. That is a prayerful, sacramental time. I won't go into the whole thing of sacraments and communions, but it's about being in the presence of God, in the presence of another person. So that's part of my spirituality. One of the disciplines that we have, the Rule of Life, recommends praying for one another, praying with one another. So we do that in area groups. We meet quite often. And also convocation, which is where all deacons meet up annually, except for this last year, where we pray a lot with one another. And certain times of the day is set aside, and not exact times, but roughly. And towards the end of an evening, it's called the Examen, which is from St. Augustine originally. It's where you look back over the day. It's the opposite of what you're saying, Angela, in some ways. It's sort of looking back over the day and thinking, what special thing happened? What can we thank God for in this day? And it's amazing, every day you can always thank God for something, but also saying sorry for perhaps not recognizing it, or doing something or not doing something you should have done. And then worshipping God. So that's quite an important way to finish the day. Another part of our Rule of Life is talking about being stewards of God's gifts. So it's not just about, it is about being stewards of the world, environmental stuff and so on, but it's also about recognizing our own God gifts and using them in service to others. It's all about service to others and service to Jesus. That's what a deacon is. So as we recognize them and use them fully, so we worship God, and that becomes the prayer for me. I think that's about it.
Very good. Anyone like to ask Jen a question about any of that? I didn't do that to you, Angela. anyone like to ask a question?
I think
Okay, well, I'm going to move on to Rosemary. Whoops, take your cross.
thank you.
Did I say Rosemary was next? Yes, I did. Okay, thanks, Jen, ever so much. Rosemary.
Hello. Well, I was born into a profoundly Christian family, and so I can't remember when I didn't talk to Jesus because it was so real. But as we got older, we had an uncle who disliked children intensely, and we'd have loved him to have given us toys, but he didn't. Instead, he gave us the Scripture Union daily readings, which I had from an early age. And trying to be conscientious, that meant that I always read my Bible and followed the Scripture Union, which we did very faithfully. But as we got older and into my teens, I had the prayer manual. There's always been a prayer manual. And it's what, in fact, first got me really interested in missionary activities, because, I mean, this is the present one, which we all know, I suppose, but it was often in this form when I was sort of growing up. But we had the prayer manual and I used it and loved it, and got very aware of people working in overseas situations and praying for them every day, and being aware of a church throughout the world. So in a sense, that grew up with me. I regret to say, I have to confess that I did have time out when I was at college, when I didn't read my Bible every day. But I couldn't get away from Jesus because he kept on nudging me. And in the end, of course, I came back. But maybe other people have time out, I don't know, but I certainly did for a little while. But I came back in, and then when I'd qualified, I did some teaching, and then I offered as a missionary and was accepted by the Methodist Missionary Society, as it was then. And I went to Kingsmead and qualified there. Well, qualified as you can. I also met my husband there, but that's another story. And so then it was really sort of Africa and being in a very close relationship, and continuing to do daily readings. That was very much part of it, making sure I read the Bible every day, said my prayers every day, and did all the things I'd always done. But of late, I suppose really coming over the years, I've discovered the Quakers. And I can't remember exactly how I started, but I started going from time to time to Quaker meetings. And I found I don't know how to describe it really, the depth and the wealth of silence I found incredibly meaningful. And I didn't go often, but when I could, I did. And that became also an important part of, I suppose, what you call my spirituality. I found the silence, maybe because I talked too much, I found it incredibly helpful. So I did silences with the Quakers. And then of late, well, probably quite a little time, particularly in the company of dogs. As you know, I'm very fond of dogs. And I found going out in the woods, and I found that intensely spiritual. Trees, woodlands, I could feel very, very close to God in that sort of setting. And fortunately, I've always been able to have that. When I was in Birmingham, I had the Sandwell Valley, and coming back to Norfolk, there's so much countryside. So I found walking was still is a very spiritual experience. It's important. And that I've greatly enjoyed. That and gardening. I find any sort of contact with plants and flowers and growing things and animals, being close to God's creation. And the older I get, the more I seem to become aware that I breathe in God's life with every breath. And the creatures, the trees, the flowers, everything that's growing is speaking of God's life, so that everything becomes a part of the spiritual world. I suppose I'm beginning to sound pantheistic, but I don't think I am. I think it's that I'm so aware of God's presence in every single living thing, particularly, I suppose, the creatures, but gardening becomes reverence. Even cooking. I remember watching my grandmother, who was a very devout Christian. She had a way of handling food as if she was sort of reverencing it. When she was making cake, she was a wonderful cook, but she had a way of handling and dealing with food which gave it a sort of special quality. So I think an awful lot of what I'd call my spirituality is related to the creation, to the things that are there for touching and feeling and holding and breathing and smelling and so forth, so that God is becoming more and more present to me in absolutely everything that I touch, and perhaps especially in the garden and the woods and the trees and the creatures. I still, of course, use the prayer manual every day. I faithfully follow it and read the Bible and all the other things. And again, I have my list, a bit like Angela said. And it's quite an extensive list, and I go through it prayerfully at night time. In the morning, I do the Bible and their sort of routine prayers, but at night, I have my list. I have to own and confess with sorrow and shame that just occasionally, if I've been feeling frightfully tired, I say to God, you know the list, please go through it. But that's only when I'm very, very tired. But normally I do go patiently and try to see everyone I'm praying for in my mind, especially some of them who need it more than others. So I have, I like to feel an ongoing and ever deepening relationship with God. And it's, in the end, it's about love, 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 love.
Thank you, Rosemary. Has it changed at all for you in the lockdowns? What you've been saying?
Well, of course, I'm so used to being alone. I mean, I've been alone for 42 years. The lockdown has made me feel more isolated. I've hated it. But I have got an incredibly sweet family that love me and look after me, and I've got, of course, dear friends. And but I have found the lockdown quite hard, actually, because I'm really convivial. I like being with people, and I like stopping to chat with people in the street. And you know, I just like people.
Yeah.
And dogs. Mm.
Okay, thank you ever so much for sharing that. Cliff, it's your turn.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, finding my spirituality personally, it's in music, really. When I pray, when I speak, it's like I find it easy through music. When I want to communicate with people or the world, if I have a message, I find it easy, very much easy doing that through music. But I just wanted to say, some of you may not know what, brought me into this kind of spirituality and this of praying through music. My name is Cliff, but my real name is Cliff Richard. Cliff Richard is the name which I got when I was born. My father's young brother gave me the name, and he said, I want him to sing like Cliff Richard. So he's Cliff Richard. I didn't know who this Cliff Richard was, and it's my father who told me when I was growing up. But I later on realized that this Cliff Richard he was referring to is Cliff Richard from here in UK, and he is a musician. I think you know Cliff Richard. So then that brings me to the point to say I was born in song, grew up in song, and the music is my spiritual daily bread, if I may put it that way. So what I do is that I find music, especially gospel music, very much soothing and calming effect that affects especially my brain positively. So when I am singing or when I'm listening to music, that way, especially the gospel music, hymns, I will be also praying. I will be praying through that. So I find that music is power that bring my mind, my body and the soul, and also the spirit in unison as I try and reach out to God in my day-to-day life. Coming to the period of the pandemic, I found this, very, very, in fact, the pandemic has sort of energized me in this area, if I may put it that way, because I could spend most of my time in music, communicating through music, praying for others through music, which is why some of you, if you remember, I wrote a song out of Psalm 108 when David was praying for God's intervention during the time when it was difficult, things were not okay. I thought, well, we are not meeting here with people. We are not meeting physically, as our day-to-day way of praying. When you get to people, you need to pray with people. Let's pray, let's do this. But I found that music, which is in me, which is a gift, which I see as a gift in me, helped me to pray continually during the lockdown. And I also received a lot of messages from people whom I share my music with through WhatsApp, through YouTube, that they found that many people were talking to me saying, your music has been sort of a prayer, were prayers to us. We could feel you were praying with us, you were praying for us through music. So my spirituality actually is deep in music, because not only that when I sing for other people, they feel good, but when I sing personally, I feel good. And what I usually do is every morning, when I wake up, depending with the mood in which I am, then that leads me to the type of song or the type of hymn which I'm going to sing. If I am low, I can be led to singing a song that has got something to do with uplifting my soul. If I am sick, or if I hear that someone is sick, I can engage in a prayerful song which is about healing. And by so doing, I'm praying for others that way. So I feel after singing that hymn, or even on my own, or listening to someone's music, that it has got to do with what I'm going through, I find myself connecting well with God. So I find my spirituality developing each and every day, especially through music. And I've also discovered that through music, living in that kind of spirituality, music itself shields me, shields people, shields us from what I call bad stuff or harmful stuff. I was thinking it's only me that when I'm going through a lot, when I sing, I end up feeling good. But what happened is that the other time when I was reflecting on this, I came across the scripture, 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 23, which talks about when Saul was being tormented by a harmful spirit, he asked the servants to seek out a man who is skillful in playing the lyre. Then what happened was that they brought David to be at his service. And when David played the lyre, I discovered that Saul was refreshed and he was well, and the harmful spirits departed from him. And that's exactly what happens to me when I'm going through a lot, when I engage into music, when I engage into singing prayerful song, even myself singing to myself, I feel good. So this is what music does to me. Lastly, I wanted to say there's a song, I don't know if anyone has come across it, the song of St. Augustine by Martin Domen, when he talks about praying twice. I listen to that song and I find it, helping me quite a lot. And I also found in the Catechism of the Catholic Church a quote that says, "He who sings prays twice. He who sings prays twice." So that has authenticated again that I can live that spiritual life well and grow. And many people, again, they feel better when I sing with them or when I sing to them. So that's what I wanted to share, Jackie, just to play briefly the song which I've mentioned. I think you will agree with me on what I'm saying.
Oh, beauty so ancient and yet so new. Too late I have known you. Too late I have loved you. I stand here in need of your mercy. Rebuild me anew, fill my soul. Let me seek you, my soul thirsts for you. You have made me, oh God, live forever in your love, and my heart will not rest until it rests in you.
Yes, so that is beautiful music, which reminds me that God has made me for himself, and my heart will not rest until it rests in him. So this is me through music. Thank you.
Cliff, thank you. Anyone like to ask Cliff a question? Okay,
Jackie,
yes.
can I just make a quick commercial, which I forgot? If anyone's interested in contemplative prayer, there's a regular ecumenical group that meets every Tuesday at 5:45 at Wiverton. I've been to that this evening. It means a whole lot to me that it's ecumenical, and I think there are 2 Methodists at it, but it does meet, and it's only 20 minutes. We don't do the hour, but we have a reading, and then we have the silence, and then we finish with a prayer together. And I find that enormously helpful.
Thank you, Rosemary. Thank you. Okay, well, it's me leaving myself to the end, so I'll just gather my thoughts. I think what I would always start off by saying in terms of my own prayer life is that I always set myself up to fail. Well, I have in the past anyway, because I've always wanted to do what Angela was describing and Rosemary using the handbook every day. I've always wanted to be able to sit down and give a proper decent time to prayer and reading the Bible. And whenever I have a new start, I start off doing it and it all goes fantastic, but I can never keep it up. I think and through my life, I think because I've never really lived on my own, there's always people around, and especially when I had young children, it was absolutely impossible. And so I think, like a lot of people, I've often carried a sort of guilt complex that I'm not doing it properly. But I've been freed from this in recent years, which is brilliant, because I've learned that actually you can pray in other ways and do other things. And that it's good if you have got the discipline to have that quiet time. I do that sometimes, and I have a prayer corner, and I wanted to show you my prayer corner, so let me just bring it up. This is my prayer corner. And if I promise somebody I will pray for them, or if I really want to pray hard about something, then I go to this upstairs and I write their name under that little tree on the right there. There's a little wooden tree that can have a candle in it. Or I put their names in the basket. But what really freed me up a few years ago was when I read this book, which is called How to Pray, and it's by somebody called John Pritchard, who was the Bishop of Oxford. Now, I wouldn't normally pick up a book that said how to pray. It doesn't sound terribly exciting, but actually it is a terribly exciting book. And he's full of fresh ideas. And particularly, he gives lots of different suggestions for how one prays through the day in short, punchy ways, using the things that are going on and the events of the day. Now, this was a revelation to me that I didn't have to sit down in a particular place. I could pray in these ways that he was suggesting. And then I found another book, which is called Spirituality to Go by Olive Drain. And this too was about praying on the move. And you see at the bottom, it says rituals and reflections for everyday living. And she suggests using everyday objects and rituals, the ordinary rituals of life, and also ones that one can deliberately use. So, for example, a suggestion I took up of hers was when I had a grandchild on the way, the first grandchild, I got a candle and I called it the baby candle, and I lit it every day as a prayer for that new baby. And it was using an object and sort of concretizing the prayer. I've missed out an important thing that I wanted to say, which is that I've been very much helped by having other people pray with me for structured prayer times. Because although I find it difficult to do it on my own, if I'm with other people, I do it. And when we were living in Wyndham before we came here, there were 2 or 3 people who met with me once a week, and we did morning prayer out of the worship book. And now here in this circuit, there's a group of people, and people come and go, but there's a core group of people who do morning prayer on Zoom once a week. And then we have open prayer once a week. And I find that really helpful because it's a discipline and it helps me to do it. So I found that discipline helpful of the other people. I found this spirituality to go and the praying through the day helpful. And that has led me, as you know, to suggesting things for other people to do, but I find it helpful myself. This is the display I did this year for Holy Week. And by using, again, everyday objects and things that are going on anyway and turning them into prayer or basing them on a Bible passage, it really helps me to feel prayerful and to feel God's presence through the day. Then I've got to mention labyrinths, and you know I talked about labyrinths the other week, and this is the temporary rope one we've had outside our garage. That tomb there is what we had the Easter before last, but usually there's a globe thing in the middle, a stone globe. And nowadays, and during the lockdowns, when I wanted to pray, I went out and walked that labyrinth, and I walked slowly into the middle, and I took whatever it was I wanted to pray about to God. I'd spend some time in the middle, and then I'd walk out again. And people talk about the prayer unwinding. You retrace your steps and you come back out of the labyrinth, back into your normal life. And it's like you've walked in and offered something in the sacred space that's really just your paving outside the garage, but somehow because you're walking prayerfully along a labyrinth, it becomes sacred. And then you leave whatever it is in the middle or in the labyrinth, and you walk out, and I really feel as though I've met with God. I'm going to miss that one. The other thing that I find really helpful is to go into an Anglican church or somewhere where there's a real numinous atmosphere and space. When we were living in Wyndham, I went into Norwich Cathedral. I try to go once a fortnight. This is the labyrinth in Norwich, but it's the inside I really appreciate. When I went in one of the lockdowns, and there was no chairs and no people. Look at that. That's just, I just walk in and I immediately feel that God is there, and I'm immediately transported into a place of prayer. That's looking the other way in the nave. But when I went once a fortnight, it was to a midweek communion service, which they have at 12:30. They do different things on different days, but I tended to go on a Wednesday at 12:30. And that's really fed me and keeps me going for some days and weeks till I feel I must go again. And now we live in Swaffham, it's harder because it's longer to get into Norwich. But I'm trying to go once a month at the moment because it's so important to me, especially as on a Sunday, I'm usually leading worship, and it's a totally different thing going and just sitting and being part of the congregation yourself. So I don't know if any of that hung together or made sense, but that's my attempts at living with God through the day and through the week. And I feel I'm still learning and doing it. And I think one day when I'm retired, or when I'm the senior age that Rosemary is, then I perhaps, will do it properly. You never know. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Now, there is about 12 minutes left, I think. Now, would anybody else like to share? Because I only asked the people I've asked because I knew that they would be here and I thought they'd be likely people to ask. But we're really very happy to hear from anybody else. Is anyone going to be brave? Pippa, are you going to be brave?
I'm just going to say how much we've appreciated the morning prayers. And
On Zoom?
you say it's helped you,
Yeah.
but certainly it's sort of made us feel that you are a very spiritual person, and that has helped us.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think it's being together, which has been lovely over this Zoom thing and all this nastiness. It's been lovely to come together as a circuit. I've really appreciated it.
Yes, and we've discovered, haven't we, that we can be together like this, even though we're all in different places. And we're going to have to work out how we continue doing that at appropriate time intervals, aren't we? Not that the morning prayers are going to continue, although we have cut down, haven't we? And when we started it in fact, didn't we start it last?
Holy Week, wasn't it? Was it Holy Week last year?
No, I think we started it because I had this idea that I wanted us to go through the prayer handbook every day so that we actually read the prayers in the prayer handbook. So I think it was in September.
Oh, maybe.
Anyway, it doesn't matter, but we did it every day.
No, it's before September.
It was before.
Definitely.
Maybe it was the old prayer handbook.
Well, never mind, it doesn't matter. But it has been very good, and we're carrying on Mondays and Thursdays. And if anybody wants to join us, and a few people who are on this Zoom now do join us. On Mondays, we use the morning prayer out of the Methodist Worship Book, which I find very helpful because it's got a structure to it, but some lovely prayers in it. And we use the readings for the day. And I think it's a real gift from the Methodist Church that we have all those services in the worship book. We don't want to use them all the time, and of course we want spontaneous prayers and things as well, but I think it is good to have that structure. So we do that on a Monday, and then on a Thursday we have open prayer. And when we started that, I wasn't sure how it would work, and what happens if people start speaking at the same time, and what if nobody speaks. But actually it does work, and we have quarter of an hour, and it doesn't matter if particular people don't say anything on any occasion, and it's just a very good time of being able to commit things to God. Anyway, that was my adverts for the...
Jackie, it rather reminds us that we belong to a community. I think that's what's been so good about it. That, you know, as a circuit, I mean, people we normally never see, and it's really lovely to feel that we belong to a bigger circle, a community. You know, I've lived in community years ago, and that's lovely. And now we've got a community, and I think it'd be a pity to lose it. I enjoy it.
Yes, that connects with what Jen was saying,
Yes,
actually.
exactly.
Yes. Sorry, did you want to say?
Well, just to say that's a bit similar to what I was saying about the diaconal community. That, yeah, you have a real sense of being part of something.
Yeah.
Yourself.
Anybody else like to share anything? It doesn't matter what it is.
David.
Can I say something?
Oh, David, hello, yes.
In fact, we have in the Methodist hymn books, all three of them, that's still really current, we have a wonderful source of prayer. And I find that those hymns are very valuable to me in my own prayer life. I often wake up in the morning with one of them in my mind for one reason or another. And I think that they have helped me a great deal in some of the problems I've had lately. And I think especially the hymn, Our Lord and Father of Mankind. And I find I can use those hymns to great advantage. They're so profound and so meaningful to me, and I meet so many circumstances in my life. So I would recommend that as a a foundational aid for prayer are amongst Methodists.
Mm.
Yes, thank you. You
That's
referred to 3 hymn books. So you mean the old Methodist hymn book, do you? And hymns and psalms,
Mm.
singing the faith. Is that what you mean?
Sorry?
You said 3 hymn
You
books.
said 3 hymn books.
I said 3 hymn books, yeah. Methodist hymn book for singing the faith and hymns and psalms. And
Yes.
remember, I could go back to the primitive Methodist hymn book if you like, but they all have profound items in them.
Yes. And one really needs all those 3 hymn books, doesn't one? Because there are certain hymns that are not in the others.
That's right.
And I'm really surprised when I want to use a hymn and I look for it in Singing the Faith and it's not there. Then I look in hymns and psalms and it's not there either. So, and then one has to go back to the old Methodist hymn book.
That's right. Oh, brother man, fall to thy heart, thy brother used to be a favourite of mine, but he's not in the new book.
Right. Yes. When I was a child, I had my own copy of the old Methodist hymn book, covered in a red plastic cover, I think. I've still got it. And I marked what my favourite hymns were. And
Yeah.
I put a circ around them and put
Yeah.
MFH, my favourite hymn. And it says it by, what is it? King of Glory, King of Peace. What's that one?
I will love thee.
George Herbert.
How's it start?
King of glory, King of
glory,
peace,
King of
I will
peace.
love thee, and that love may never cease. I will move.
I will move thee.
Praise thee.
Yes, I've got
George
that marked.
Herbert.
One of my favourite hymns. Anyway, but thank you, David. That's so right, and it links with what Cliff was saying about his music. But you're making a deeper point. You're saying, not that you weren't deep, Cliff. Not that you weren't deep. But David is saying that the theology in the Methodist hymns provide rich material for prayer. I think you're saying that, aren't you, David?
Yeah, indeed, indeed.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? 5 more minutes. Okay, well, if we've come to a sort of natural end, I will tell you what's happening for the next 3 weeks. Now, Jen and I are having 2 weeks holiday. We feel bad about it.
I'm going to mute you.
But we are. I don't think I feel bad about it. She doesn't feel bad about it. I do. And but we're looking forward to it anyway. But the next Tuesday evenings are still happening. Glyn is going to be the technical person who opens up the Zoom space. Now, Pippa, I'm relying on you. I don't know if you know that.
Well, I did, but I've put in my message to you that we're going to be away next week.
Oh, you're away next week?
Yeah, so I'm hoping that we can join the quiz from Swindon.
Well, you should be able to.
Yes, should be able to, yeah.
Edward Golding has said he will do the quiz.
Yeah.
But if Glyn is, but I just want to make sure it's all right.
Yeah.
What I mean. If you are going to be there, and of course Glyn will be there because he's going to host the Zoom. So between you, I think you can make sure that it happens all right.
Yeah.
And I hope people will join in to support him because it's great that he wants to do it.
Yeah. But we should be back the next week.
And then the next week, you're going to finish off, well,
Rosemary.
finish off Rosemary, aren't you?
Hope not.
The second part of her life.
Yes.
Yes. And then the week after, June the 29th, will be the last one in this series. I'm not saying we won't do it again because I think we will, but not over the summer. So the 29th will be the last one. Now, what can we do to celebrate, folks? We
Have
can
a party.
Exactly. So we can all have a glass of something with us, even if it's only tap water or orange juice. So have a drink with you on that last one. I'll probably get people to share memories of the the lockdowns or something. So if there's something either good or bad that you'd like to share from the experience of lockdown, or anything you'd like to show us, if anybody's done knitting, or Heather, what is it you've done over the lockdown? Have you done knitting? Or is that not you? No. I can't hear you because you're mute.
I've knitted cushion covers and dishcloths.
Dishcloths, that's right. So please can you show us that on June the 29th?
Oh, blimey. Okay.
So you get the idea. We'll just share with each other experiences from the last 18 months. We'll have a drink with us, and maybe we'll have a prayer time as well.
We could have a balloon.
And just, what do you say, Doreen?
We could have a balloon.
Balloons, yes. I've had about 6
Balloons.
family birthdays all in about 6 weeks, and we had balloons for all of them on Zoom. So we're quite good at that. So yeah, let's have balloons.
Yeah.
Or anything
Okay.
else partyish.
Right. Silly hats.
No, we're not having silly hats.
We shall now be disappointed if you don't have silly hats.
Well, Heather suggested it. She can have the silly hat.
I think this is degenerating.
Yes,
Yes. That was since I unmuted.
that's because you asked her to unmute. Yeah.
For being here tonight, everybody, and do come on the next 3 weeks, but then we'll be stopping for the summer. Okay.
Have a great holiday.
Have a great holiday.
Yes, have a nice-
Yes, thank you.
Where are you going?
Well, not very far.
Oh.
The first week, Heacham near Hunstanton, and the second week in our caravan
Good.
in Rowton. So we're not going far.
Obeying Boris.
Sorry?
I said you're obeying Boris,
Yes.
not going far.
I wouldn't dare try and go abroad or anything. Not that we would anyway, but
Enjoy the fish and chips.
yes. It'll be nice just to be away from the house for a period.
Yeah.
But although we're worried about leaving the garden.
And the phone.
Away from the phone.
Our neighbour is going to water our garden for us, but Sandra doesn't know this yet. Sandra, we're going to ask if you would do an occasional job, but we'll ask you separately. Okay, we're going to go. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
See you again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.